Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas. I'm joined by Sal Angelo. If you have not tuned into part one of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast with Sal Angelo today, we talked about the 2016 Buffalo Bills season. Talked about Doug Whaley, Rex Ryan, is he on the hot seat? And, a lot of other topics within the Buffalo Bills organization as well. So, one question I wanted to ask you, and this is one that came to mind about the Buffalo Bills. Among the many draft gaffes that they've had, which we talked about that a little bit, their successes and their failures. Among the many draft mistakes that they've made over the course of their franchise history, where does not drafting Rob Gronkowski and drafting Terrell Troop rank among the worst decisions for you as a Buffalo Bills fan? It's in my top 2, top 3, maybe even number 1. You can make a case for that.
Let's go back to that draft for a minute, because I remember in high school you were talking about one particular player who was drafted by Baltimore. You said the Bills got to get this guy, the Bills got to get this guy. He's not even in the NFL anymore. His name's Terrence Cody. You were all on Terrence Cody. All you talked about was Terrence Cody, and I remember that vividly. I cannot tell you how much I remember hearing, well, the Bills got to get Terrence Cody. I think he went to 53, 52 overall to Baltimore, and I was not even in the NFL. But anyways, just let the people know out there who you really had your focus on. No, but with Rob Gronkowski, he's in the perfect setting. He's in the perfect system. I don't know if he would have worked out too well with a lot of the teams. He's had a lot of injuries, and the Patriots have seen it through with him. Especially the third season and fourth season, where the third season he had broke his elbow, and the fourth season where he tore his ACL. So he could have got the label injury prone, and maybe the coaches kept using him less. But I think he fell into the right situation. He fell into New England. He had Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time, and really, not a lot of people knew who Rob Gronkowski was going in that draft. A lot of people thought that was an overreach because he had issues of health in college, never really had a lot of stats. He had one good season, never really played in high school, so there wasn't really much to go on him. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of these players that come from Buffalo, and you go into all sports, and you look at hockey, you get Patrick Kane. It's like we don't even look at our own backyard for these guys. Gronkowski, we picked up Neiman Roosevelt. That was really short-lived. A lot of guys come from this area. I mean, Moose Johnson, from Lewiston, become all-pro fullback for Dallas Cowboys during the 90s.
Yeah, Daryl Johnson, yeah.
But, I can't really fault the Bills for not drafting him, but you got to look, there's a lot of other teams that passed him besides the Bills.
That's true. And the Mount Cody thing, I mean, I liked him because they needed a defensive tackle, and then a year later they went out and got one. So it wasn't really so much I was as enamored with that player. I just knew that they really needed a defensive tackle. And that was one of the few misses that Ozzie Newsome has had over the course of his GM career with the Ravens. And he was in the league for a few years, and I think he ate himself out of the league, unfortunately.
Yeah, he sure did.
But,
and the other thing, too, speaking of Baltimore, I mentioned them earlier on your first part of your podcast there. Unfortunately, poor Ozzie Newsome has been handcuffed by this Joe Flacco deal that Steve Biscotti gave after he'd won Super Bowl 40, I want to say it was 47. I mean, something, I cannot believe that that team has faltered since that $100 million contract. What Newsome believes in is getting players at a bargain. Belichick's goal in Cleveland. And ever since then, they cut 5 of the players, and they've only had one winning season since. They barely stuck into the playoffs. And this year again, I mean, they look like they're handcuffed.
It's like the Jay Cutler thing. I mean, when you invest that much money in a quarterback that's coming off of one good year, it proves historically to not be worth it. And that's why I've been a huge naysayer, you could say, of the Buffalo Bills doing the same thing with Tyrod Taylor. I question his durability as far as staying healthy for a 16-game season. He's got rare escapability, and he can do things on the run, and he can roll out and make things happen, make a bad play into a good play. But investing that much money, we've done that before with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that did not work out. Every situation's different, but Bill Belichick, like you said, Ozzie Newsome followed follows that mold. And what is your take on Bill Belichick as a head coach / GM with what he's done with the Patriots? Obviously, it's really easy to say that he's done a fantastic job. But what is your take on Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots heading into 2016 with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback? And I definitely have another question on that topic, but I'd like you to answer that one first.
Well, I first off, talking about Belichick's drafting, my reaction is probably a hell of a lot better than it was 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, I definitely was calling for Belichick to relinquish his GM duties. I mean, they were making poor decisions. They drafted Chad Jackson in the second round, a receiver the Bills had, I think in 2010. Lawrence Maroney with the first round pick. They were very smart with their draft. And I think within the past 5 or 6 years, they've done a better job at drafting. They've emphasized the importance of it. New England's more predominantly a free agent team, and that's where Belichick thrives when he makes those signings. The Rodney Harrison, those kind of players. But getting back to your question there on Garoppolo, I see this year, Garoppolo is just a backup. I think Belichick uses his quarterbacks in 3 different facets. He has the third-string quarterback, his facet, they're getting the practice squad ready for playing mobile quarterbacks, get the scout team defense, the starting team defense. They're facing Tyrod Taylor with the third string in there and kind of reenact what he does. They did that for Manning. They had a backup. His name was Damon Heward during the early 2000s who would imitate Manning and prepare for him. So my thing is Garoppolo is just a fill position. Brady's a starter. Brady will be a starter. Do I see him as Brady's replacement? I'd be honest with you, I don't think so.
No.
I think what they're doing is what they've done with previous quarterbacks before, the Ryan Mallett, the Brian Hoyers, Matt Castles. They're just marketable pieces in the arsenal of Bill Belichick. Make them look good and then move them. And they always get better than what they paid for them. It's always a bargain. Never pay a king's ransom.
Yeah.
I recommend anybody who's a sports fan, if you're not a New England fan, which I'm sure a lot of people aren't, there's a book called Management Secrets of New England Patriots, both volume 1 and 2. Gives a lot of insight into how they operate. Philosophies, dedication, hard work. It's a very, very, very good book. Very, very good read. If not anything is for a sports fan, just to be a businessman, I would definitely recommend reading the book.
Well, it's like the Bill Walsh book. I can't think of the title off the top of my head, but I see a lot of similarities between the Bill Walsh San Francisco 49ers era and the Bill Belichick New England Patriots era, not just because they're both successful franchises, but the way that the teams are fundamentally sound, they're mentally tough as opposed to just X's and O's. They're guys that are true professionals in every sense of the word. You don't hear besides Aaron Hernandez, you don't hear about guys on the Patriots making mistakes off the field. Besides Aaron Hernandez, of course. He leads a tight ship that is about winning and preparation and week to week. I don't think there's a coach in the NFL right now that prepares better than Bill Belichick. He's on the bicycle at 4 a.m. watching film in the gym. They cover these. He's been doing that for years, even when he was a defensive coordinator with the Giants. He was a guy that was born to be a head coach. There's just guys that aren't born to be head coaches and they're only coordinators, and then there's guys that are born to be head coaches, and Bill Belichick is that guy. Final take on the Thomas Take. I asked a previous guest of mine, Brandon Knapp. He's a writer for the Detroit Lions. We talked about Deflategate and how that story has taken on a mind of its own over the course of the last really 2 seasons, this season and last season. What are your thoughts on Deflategate? I have mine. I'd like to get your take, being that I wouldn't really say that you're a Bills fan, but I'd say that you give credit where credit's due, much like I do with the Patriots. You just have to tip your cap at some point and say, hey, you know what, this team is just that successful. They're that good. They deserve their credit. What is your take on the whole Deflategate saga, you could say?
The most overrated story of all time. That is the most overrated story of all time. To talk about, initially reports were proven to be false. The NFL leaked information to ESPN that was incorrect. ESPN later apologized for that information being reported, and as a agency which you try to strive for integrity and honesty and trust within your viewers, definitely a joke. First reported that all the balls were over 2 pounds. Then they later reported 11 of the 12 balls were within 2/100th of an inch of proper pressure, which is obviously, if anyone knows anything about gas law, the weather elements do reduce the ball's air pressure naturally, just like in the wintertime when you see your tires low on air.
Yeah.
Cold air pressure reduces the amount of air pressure inside of something. So the detrimental effect it's had on the Patriots, I mean, taking away a first-round pick, fining them $1 million, suspending Brady for 4 games, the poster child for the NFL. I mean, listen, there are so many other things within the NFL that we question, why did that happen to that person, but then this person gets this. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger rapes a woman in a bathroom, gets 4 games. I don't really find this conduct to be similar. I mean, very serious matters. I mean, when Aaron Rodgers comes out and talks about, I like my balls overinflated.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Brandon, and when that was released, when Aaron Rodgers said, I like my footballs overinflated, that is the exact same thing. There's no difference whether they're overinflated or underinflated. You're bending the rules. You're finding a loophole in the rules. And realistically, I mean, whether people like to hear this or not, I don't know if people have been living under a rock the last, 70 years that football has existed, or more than that, really, 100, however many, since the dawn of time in sport, whether it be, the beginning of the NFL or whatever league, baseball or whatever, bending rules, players do that. That's a part of the game. Whether that you can consider that cheating or bending the rules, there's a gray area there, obviously, but that's what guys do. Every quarterback, for all intents and purposes, does this, and I find it to be completely ridiculous that he is suspended for 4 games. When it was appealed, and he won the appeal last year, and he wasn't suspended, it was kind of thrown aside. I thought, finally, that stupid story is done. Now that they'll bring it back, now that they've brought it back a year later, and it's actually he basically went toe-to-toe with the NFL in a heavyweight title fight, in a 15-round fight, and the 15 round starts, and he just stays in his corner and says, no, I'm done. And that's, I think he did what his last option. He's like, I can only fight for so long. I'm sick of fighting against the NFL over this stupid reasoning. And like you said, there's the Ray Rice situation. Adrian Peterson disciplined his child. How harshly it was or not. I think a person's family life should have nothing to do with their professional career, and to take a whole year of Adrian Peterson's career away, a whole season, which could potentially, in the long run, damper his chances at making the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I don't think it'll implicate the chance of the Hall of Fame. I think it'll implicate obtaining that record from Evan Smith.
Yeah.
A running back's years are precious. Everything is precious about it. I mean, you take that away, the grind of the game starts to wear the older you get, the new training camp, new season. The wear and tear just builds on you. So it now looks more harder than ever will he break Evan Smith's rushing record of 18,000 yards. But here nor there. The thing with New England is they're a class organization. They've had obstacles before. They've had the Bounty Gate. The Slate. Wow, there's so many gates.
Spygate.
I'm not ready to call them Colgate.
Spygate.
Spygate. They've faced adversity, and they always seem to come out on top. A new challenge, a new season. The only issue is that when you play with the quarterback, it gets much worse. Through split reps, it makes it harder for timing routes with receivers and getting guys on board and what you want and what this guy wants. It's very difficult. But knowing that